All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to be learning how to model a spotlight. Now, a lot of people when starting doing CGIs, they think that the spotlight needs to be, it's an actual light source. And I thought like that as well when I was beginning learning CGI. So I will explain it like this. So sometimes when working with clients, you will get, well, actually you will not get the lighting plan in front. You might get the lighting plan later or in the middle of the project, or you're not gonna get the lighting plan at all, and you're gonna have to sort out the lighting on your own randomly. So basically you're gonna be putting by the way, this is a dummy scene just to show you the example. So for example, let's just say you're gonna be putting spotlights, you know, like this, right? And you're gonna create a lighting plan, spend time on it plus money, and later on, let's just say you finish the lighting, you render the CGIs, everything looks fine, everything looks beautiful, right? But then the client says, oh, the spotlights are in the wrong position. So what the client is literally saying, that the client is seeing only your spotlights, right? So he's seeing in the CGI, the client is seeing, oh, that the spotlight is one's there, one's there, one's there, and I need to have two spotlights there, or they're gonna be a little bit offset, right? And I'm not gonna have those spotlights. But you already sorted out the lighting completely, right? Everything is done. So if that would be your main light source and the light is gonna be built into the spotlight geometry, that means that if you're gonna move that light, you're deleting the other two lights. The client is not going to see them, obviously, but then you're changing your lighting again, and then you're going to have to recalibrate your lighting a little bit in the scene again. So you're going to spend extra time doing that, right? But the client really doesn't give a damn where the light's coming from. He just thinks that he needs to see two spotlight geometries on the ceiling instead of four. That is usually 95% of the time their motto. They would just want to see two instead of four, let's just say. But you have four spotlights there lighting the interior very nicely. So usually when you fake this, because this is a 3D world, this is not a real world, by the way. So you can do and manipulate things in any way you want, right? And save time on lighting, on overexposure, overexposed areas, etc., etc. Because for example, in real life photography, you cannot really manipulate that much. You will need to have your fill lights, your floodlights, you're gonna have to work with all of those lights. And you know, you have, like, for example, a sharp sun. You cannot make the sun in an overcast option, right? You're gonna have to experiment like crazy. In here you have the full control, right? All right, so enough talking, god damn it. Let's model the first spotlight. All right, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. All right, so usually the spotlight diameter is around the internal one. A simple standard spotlight usually is gonna be between, let's just say, 8 centimeters to 10 centimeters in diameter. So we're gonna do something roughly in the middle. We're gonna do 8.5, right? So let's take a cylinder and let's draw a cylinder. So something like that, right? And I wouldn't use 30 sides. I would choose 60. I think that's more than enough, especially for internal work, because sometimes if you're rendering a VR tour and you're standing literally above the spotlight, you will be able to see, you know, low resolution, so to say. So for example, if I'm gonna put that there, you know, you're gonna be standing closer, and usually in the VR tours you can zoom a little bit to those objects, right? Unless you unlock it. So you can see that it's not that nice, but when you put 60, I think it's just more than enough. Obviously from a really close up you will see the edginess, but I think 60, that's more than enough. So 8.5, we're just gonna choose 8.5. So that's gonna be what, 4.25, right? So this is a radius, so diameter is gonna be 8.5, right? Okay, cool. So for now, for the thickness, we are gonna do, let's just say 0.8 or 0.7, right? We're gonna do 0.7. We're gonna go to editable poly modifier, or you can choose one from here, which is gonna be editable poly, right? And we're gonna inset this by 2 centimeters. So let's just inset this by 2. That's a little bit too much. Let's do 1.5 maybe. Let's do 1 and 3. Excuse me, 1.3. Yeah, that's gonna be perfect. So 1.3, then press Ctrl. So it has to be kind of proportionate, right? Usually when I measured my internal spotlights, usually it's like 1.5 to 2 centimeters, right? So the source, well, the source is usually not as big, is not as wide. So let's leave it as that, and we're gonna put some detail into it, right? We're gonna put Ctrl Shift up. We're gonna copy that, and we're gonna bridge this. Right, so Ctrl, select that and bridge it. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna select this object here, and we're gonna detach this face here. Okay, so detach. There we go, and let's just centralize this, the pivot. All right, so let's inset this just by a little bit. So let's just say 0.2, 0.3. Yep, that's perfect. So detach this face again, and drop this face to that one, so snap it. So right click on this one, choose vertex only, and you will be able to snap it. When you apply 3D snap, you will be able to snap it there. And now we can shell it by, let's just say 0.8. All right, so we're adding a little bit more detail to this light. All right, the next thing we want to do is add a little bit more detail there. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add ring, connect, and we're gonna move it to the side here, right? We're gonna delete all of these faces or edges, doesn't matter, and we will delete everything there as well. So ring it, delete it. Okay. And the next thing we can do is we're gonna put some detail with chamfering. So select those two, and you can press loop, or you can press double click, you hold Ctrl, double click, and you can chamfer it, right? Don't do it too much. I would do also 2 segments and do smooth chamfers only, right? So something like that, and do the same thing for the top bit here. So double click, chamfer, and do just a little bit, something along those lines, put 2 and like that, right? And for this guy, double click, we're gonna put a very small try. So we're gonna put 1 here, and I'm gonna increase this number here. All right, so that should do the trick. As you can see, that's our spotlight. And the next thing you want to do is we're gonna put our light, which is gonna be, let's just say somewhere here, right? It doesn't matter if it's gonna be here or here, but I just like to give it a little bit more depth, right? A little bit more depth. All right, so that is our spotlight. I'm gonna grab everything there, as you can see, right? So by the way, if you don't like what you're seeing here, that it's intersecting a little bit, just move it down a little bit, right? Just move it down a little bit, somewhere there, just a little bit, right? That's perfectly fine. So I'm gonna select this light, and I'm gonna move it to the ceiling, right? I'm gonna move it to the ceiling. And by the way, another benefit of this spotlight, you will never have to cut holes in your ceiling, okay? Because with more complex spotlights, especially the more complex geometries inside, you have the the reflector inside, you have the light bulb, whatever, right? You will usually have to cut a hole in a ceiling, because the ceiling is going to be overgoing the spotlight source. So All right, so let's just check it out how it looks from the camera. So it looks something like that for now. What I would do, I would decrease the thickness a little bit, something like that. So you don't want it to be very thick, right? It just has to have some thickness. All right, there we go. So that is about right, and from afar you're going to be looking somewhere there, right? Okay, the next thing you're gonna do, so this is a very simple spotlight. The next thing you're gonna do is we're gonna create some materials, very simple materials. You don't really need to create complex materials for this one. So I'm gonna be using Corona, and we're gonna be using legacy materials. Later on, we're gonna cover physical materials, but for now, legacy material is the way to go. And I'm gonna put, let's just say 180. Never put 255 color for the white materials, right? And I'm gonna put some warmth into it. Put 1 of the reflection for the level and put 0.7, right? And apply this to these 2 parts there, which is gonna be the frame. And I would recommend collapsing it, right? And just centralize. Or you can use this centralization here. The next thing you're gonna do is create a light, which is gonna be Corona light material. Now you're thinking, okay, he's gonna light the scene with this light material. No, actually I'm not gonna light the scene with this material. I'm just gonna click emit light off. Okay, so none of these are gonna be, you know, making putting the light samples in my scene. As you can see here, the icon is also indicating that it's not gonna create any light in my scene, right? So next thing I'm gonna do is gonna apply this guy, and I'm gonna put maybe 2, and I'm gonna push a little bit to the warm side. Let's just say there, right? Something like that, okay? And that is pretty much it. We can test it out. So we have our spotlight. So by the way, you know, feel free to create different materials. So for example, if you want a black plastic, do something like that. If you want a let's just say a metal material, you can do this, and you can do 20 here, and you can do 8.5 or something like that. And you can apply this to the frame, you can apply this to the frame, or you can apply this to the frame, which is most of the time is usually white, but sometimes, you know, you can match the ceiling, or, you know, it has to be chrome, or, you know, or even if you want to do, I'm just shift copying this, or even if you want to do, you know, some kind of a rose gold material, like a metal, rose gold metal, something like that, right? You can even apply that guy there, okay? So all of these can be your frame materials. Now for this one, it's only one material, right? Which is going to be basically making it look that it's a light source, right? Okay. So a good thing about Corona, you don't really need to create a camera here or do anything crazy. You just render it out, right? Like literally, I'm not even gonna go to render settings. Well, actually I will. Or maybe not. All right. Then the next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna start. I'm just gonna save this file for now, okay? So we have our spotlight, but we don't have any lights in our scene, right? So let's just try to render this in interactive mode. And as you can see, we are seeing the light source, but we don't see anything around, okay? So let me just create a quick light source. Okay, so that's gonna be, let's just say, a disk, and we're gonna centralize it something like, you know what, maybe we're gonna put it somewhere like this and put it there. We don't have any cameras obviously, but I'm just gonna put it there and put it to 2. It doesn't really matter, that's perfectly fine. And we're gonna put reflections off, visible directly, caustics, other lights, doesn't matter, right? All right, so just in case, I'm gonna drag a camera, because I don't know why, but I like to work with cameras. And this is our spotlight there, so let's just check it out. There we go. So we see a little bit of light there just to make us a bit more comfortable, right? So another thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna disable quickly the where is it, the performance fast preview the noise during rendering. Boom. Okay, So all right, so this is our spotlight. I'm just gonna make a quick selection set. So side light. So I could literally select this from here and, you know, play around with it a little bit. I'm just gonna put this to 5. There we go, that's fine. So we can see everything now. All right, so this is our spotlight, as you can see there. Right, but it doesn't really cast anything in our scene. Now we could do so. We could do this. We can emit light, and we can even control the directionality, and we can add this crazy numbers, 50, right? But that is the thing. I would never ever recommend doing this, okay? Because you will get more noise in your scene than ever. It's gonna be slow to render, you're gonna start getting artifacts in some areas, etc. So what I would recommend, that is why I'm telling you, don't use the geometry as your light source, right? Try not to practice that. So, but it is, you can do so. I'm not saying that you can't. That's an English word there. All right, so for example, I'm just gonna show you a very quick example, sphere. Right, I'm gonna put a sphere and I'm gonna add this light there. I'm gonna take on my camera. And so I'm not saying that this cannot be a light source. By the way, I would drop this to, let's just say 16 for now, okay? So I'm gonna go here, and as you can see, it's acting like a light source. Perfectly fine. But this is a massive light, right? And nothing is covering it, and it's not touching anything, right? This is perfectly fine. By the way, I wouldn't really use this as a light source either, unless you really, really need to, right? What I would definitely use is a light, right? I would use a proper light, right? That you have a lot more control, etc. So for example, I would use a sphere here, put it here, and I would do this, right? So my recommendation to you guys is always to use, if it's a light source, always use a proper light source. Try to avoid using light sources as your geometry, right? Because you can have a lot of polygons, etc. You don't optimize the geometry, and it's gonna just be slow in your scene, because this is a lot easier to manipulate. You can get 8 or 6 polygons, and it's gonna be casting rays from those polygons in each direction less, and it's gonna be cheaper to render, faster to render, less noise, etc, 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 right? So try to avoid using a geometry light. Just a good practice, so to say, especially with V-Ray as well, if you're using V-Ray, right? All right, cool. So so this is our spotlight, and we don't really want it to be as our source light. All right, so we don't want it to be as our source light. We're just gonna click this off again, and we're gonna keep this to, let's just say 2, right? We're gonna keep this as 2, and let's just see what we get, right? So this is what your client is gonna see, right? So we're gonna do this, and it looks kind of crap, right? We cannot see anything nice. So let's just do 5. Still looks boring, right? So the beauty of this is to apply bloom and glare. Okay, that's it. That's pretty much it. The next thing you can do, you can start manipulating the intensities of these bloom and glares, and this works in parallel with your intensity. So don't go like 50, okay? Don't try to do these kind of things, okay? And the same thing that I'm gonna repeat myself, if you're making this as a light source and you're using like 50 or 40 or 30, this is gonna look weird. It's gonna be harder to balance, right? Later on, for different scenes, the lighting is gonna change, And if the lighting is going to change, the intensities are going to change, your bloom and glare is going to change as well. And if some of your teammates are going to take your light as an asset and they're working in a completely different lighting environment, this light will have to be adjusted to their scene back again. So what I'm trying to say, keep this at 3 or 4, and this is more than enough. Let's just say, let's put it at 5. Let's see how it goes. So I just want a slight bloom there. There you go. And usually in real life, if you would take your phone, right, and you would literally point at your spotlight from, let's just say, 1 meters away, you wouldn't really see anything inside of the spotlight. You wouldn't see the bulb, you wouldn't see the reflector unless the light is very you know, dark, on a darker side, or your camera exposure is gonna, or your focus is gonna literally concentrate on the bulb, and it's gonna drop the exposure so much that you're gonna start seeing the insides of the spotlight. But in reality, if you take a picture just of a room, it's definitely gonna concentrate on the lightest point, sorry, on the darkest point. So for example, you're taking a picture of your kitchen, right? And it has 6 spotlights. The kitchen is going to be well lit, well overexposed, and the spotlights obviously are going to be blowing out. And that's going to be always the case. Usually photographers, sometimes if they need to, they take the pictures with different exposures and they Photoshop those spotlights a little bit down. But it really depends. Usually when I do CGIs for the clients, usually they like the glare coming from the spotlights because it's more realistic. Okay, so this is actually what you need. Okay, this is what you need. And the next thing I would do is, after you're happy with your result, just attach to that, match material IDs to material, bam, you have one object. It's not a group, it's not nothing. It's easy to put to the ceiling. Just gonna move it in a little bit. It's easy to put to the ceiling. You don't have to cut any holes, anything. Now I'm gonna show you your light source. So your light source, your actual light source, is gonna be a light, a proper light. So we're gonna have disk. I'm gonna put this to 12 for now, and we're gonna just centralize this here and to that point there. There we go, that's perfect. And we're gonna add this there. I'm gonna drop it somewhere. God damn, my mouth is drying out. Okay, cool, I can talk now. All right, cool. So we have this below, right? We have this below. Now, we can make it smaller. Don't be afraid to, make it smaller or increase a little bit of the segments. We can make it smaller. Let's just say, I don't know, something like that. It really depends. Just try to match, the actual light source. Well, the fake light source. So we're just gonna do something like this. You can even do it wider, doesn't really matter. So we're gonna do something like this, and I would always suggest you to do wireframe and, I don't know, increase the gizmo a little bit so you would see what is going on. And for the spotlight, I would recommend doing directionality to 3 or, I don't know, 5. Well, 5 I think is a little bit too much. 3, 5, something like that. Let's just intensity, let's just increase the intensity to 10 for now. All right, so this is what we have here, and let's see how we can manipulate this. Okay, so I'm gonna go back a little bit and I'm gonna press interactive rendering. All right, and visible directly, you don't want to do that. Visible directly off. Now we are only taking this as a light source. We're not really taking this as a reflection, etc, etc, etc. Now in mirror reflections, you will see this still. So you have to disable visible in reflections and in refractions, okay? Because you're gonna see a disk there. Now, another way to fake it, unless you really want to see those glossy reflections on your objects in your scene, you can leave this on, but just be careful with reflections in the glass, in the mirrors, etc., so you wouldn't see the disc, right? But usually your scene should take the light speckles from that white material, which is overexposed, by the way. That's why we're getting this nice glare there. Now for the light, let's increase this to 50 and put, where is it, and put maybe 2. Let's see how it looks. All right, let's increase this to more, 500. There we go. We're starting to see something now. So, okay, that's fine. So let's just decrease this to 20 for now. Let's just increase the directionality to 5. There we go. So, all right, so this is, let's just change the color just a little bit. There we go. Let's just increase this to 1000. Okay, and always if you need a little bit more light, you know, increasing the radius, it's perfectly fine. Now, as you can see, it lits my floors, which is the main thing, and lits a little bit of that, which is also the main thing. And we can, you know, we can play around with this light source in any way we want, right? So for example, let's just say that is a little bit too much. Let's put 0.2. So it's gonna go higher because it's spreading. So let's just put 3, 5. So I think that's we're quite close. There we go. So something like that, right? Now, the cool thing about this also that you can use IES lights. So it's just one click away. It's just one click away. All right, cool. So we can choose none. We can obviously, Corona has its own IES, but I'm just going to use one that I have, and I'm going to include this in the cloud link as well. So I'm going to choose my profile. Bam, there we go. And it's massive. Let's just do 1. Let's just do 2 for now. Maybe 1. Okay, cool. So this is an IES light profile. Okay, and let's just try that. There we go. Honestly, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit because I just want to see kind of everything. All right, there we go. So this is our IES light profile, and as you can see, we can control in any way you want. Like for example, with this light, you cannot really add an IES profile in this one. It's kind of meant for geometry. If you have some kind of a geometry that needs to be lit as that geometry, please use this approach. It's perfectly fine. Now, but if you want a proper light source, don't use geometries, okay? And making them as a light main source, because that is not the correct way of working, okay? Use proper lights for proper light sources. All right, cool. So actually we're almost there. We're kind of almost there, right? We're kind of almost there. So I'm just gonna press stop, and as you can see, it's very easy to manipulate, right? So I'm just gonna press as an instance. And we are going to move these lights somewhere there. Okay, in the middle. And let's just say there, right? As an instance. I'm just gonna go here. And now I'm just gonna increase the speed a little bit. It's too slow. So I'm gonna render this again, and as you can see, I'm getting, you know, nice light on the floor, nice light on the walls, and I have my, you know, good looking spotlights. Let's just move in a little bit closer and look directly into the spotlight. As you can see, bam, we're getting a nice glow there. And obviously you can control your glow with this guy and threshold, whatever, whatnot, right? But this is very subtle and very nice, and not in your face, right? And you can always reuse it anywhere. You don't need to cut any holes or anything, and you have the full control of controlling the light material, which is not really lighting anything. what you're lighting with is with your source light, right? So I'm just gonna press stop for now. Now that thing that I talked about is, for example, so you render, you make your lighting work, everything works fine, you know, you're happy with your rendering, and then the client comes with a lighting plan and says, oh my god, can you change all of these lights because we just made this lighting plan, right? And you spend maybe 2 hours calibrating your lighting to make it perfect, right? So what do? What I usually do what I usually do is I fake it. I don't spend another 2 hours or 1 hour calibrating my lighting. I don't really have time for that, right? You gotta make money, boy. All right, so what you do, so let's just say instead of 4 spotlights here, you have how many? Let's just say the client says you have 2. Okay, so what I do, I move the spotlights there. These spotlights are not casting any light in my scene, right? What I do next is geometry, select those, delete, and leave it. And what I do, I render the CGI again, and the client sees. Usually that works 99.9%. Just so you know, okay? I've been in this industry for 15 years already. I've never ever had issues by, oh my god, the client, the light should look different. So another thing is with spotlights, especially with the IES profile, is because sometimes IES profile casts light above its origin, right? As you can see the shadow here. So what you usually have to do is very easy, very easy. So for example, if I'm gonna convert this to a proper simple light, right? I'm gonna press interactive mode again and generate caustics, occlude other lights, bam. So that's working perfectly fine now. But sometimes if I'm gonna put this on as an IES light, sometimes just keep in mind, sometimes you will have a light casting above it, right? So the light will go down, that's going to be the main source, but sometimes some IES profiles will cast light, a little bit of light above its origin, okay? So you will see a little bit of light on the ceiling. So what do? You create this, for example, as a selection set, ceiling, right? And you select all of your IES lights or light profiles, whatever. And then you go, what? You go exclude and you choose the ceiling. Press there, exclude, right? Rectangle, which is going to be your ceiling, let's just say. Press OK. And what is that going to do? It's going to exclude the ceiling, casting directly on it, right? So the light will still bounce from the ceiling, from the floor up, from the ceiling to the wall to the floor and up. That's perfectly fine. It will work fine. It will take all the light illumination bounces, but directly it will not take the light. And directly you're not really shining the light onto the ceiling. You're shining to the wall and to the floors, right? If that makes sense. So basically this is how I approach client works, especially when they're completely late, they're very late with their lighting plans, etc. And if they change the light source positions, you just change the light source position of your geometries, but you leave the light as it was before, the light sources, the real light sources, and you just re-render the image. You don't recalibrate anything. You will not need to re-Photoshop anything. It's just gonna be the same nice image, but the locations of the spotlights. And keep in mind, sometimes you're just changing, 30 centimeters, 50 centimeters of a offset of a spotlight or a light in general. The clients usually, like I said, 99% of the time, they not even notice that. As long as the spotlights are in the correct position according to their CAD plan, whatever, they will be happy. If it's shining a little bit too much on the left, right, just move the light source. Don't worry about it. But in general, I'm just gonna remove this And as you can see with these soft lights, it's a lot harder to spot where exactly the light source is shining. But sometimes you have IS lights that are very wide, and it can cast light from, you know, very far away. So for example, sorry, if you're gonna move the spot, the IS profile somewhere there, it can still cast the profile on the wall even from, you know, 1.5 meters. Perfectly, it can perfectly do that. It depends from the IS profile. But I hope this makes sense. I hope that you're gonna be reusing this technique, because it's a very, very good technique. Because I remember in the beginning I used to spend time, you know, and the thing is, 3D scene optimization, guys, 3D scene optimization. Imagine if you would have, you know, 100, 200 of these spotlights, and imagine a spotlight is that complicated, right? You have so many polygons in those complex geometry spotlights, which you have, you know, the frame, the joint, the screws, the reflector, the light bulb, etc. It's a lot more heavier. Some of them are okay, but some of them are a lot more heavier. And I used to, you know, put a light source that light source usually includes only the spotlight, and then below it I would put a spotlight. But in general, this is what you would have to do, right, with your main light sources, which you're gonna move it here in the center. I'm just gonna delete this for now, and that is gonna be your light source. So this is how you create a spotlight that works each and every time. Okay, and that light, by the way, shouldn't have any of these settings on. Okay, so the speculars that it's gonna pick from is gonna be that white overexposed thing there. And if you needed to increase just a little bit, calibrate with your bloom intensity and glare intensity, just play around with this setting, this setting, this setting, or you can even play around with the threshold. But I wouldn't touch this, to be honest. I would touch only bloom intensity, glare intensity, and you know, the size. It depends what kind of a size if you want, but I'm kind of happy with this one. It works very smoothly. You know, I don't want to have that star ray that is like extending 50 centimeters in the image. It's not very eye pleasing, but maybe for some it's, you know, it's a nice thing to look at. I'm not sure. But yeah, another very important thing, so it's just going to be an extra. You can end the video here, but another thing that you can experiment with, so for example, sometimes you have these LED lights. So you can say that this is an LED light, but it's a very simple approach. So I'm just gonna copy this as a copy, and I'm gonna put this as all white for now. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this material just in case. I'm just gonna put this to white for now, and what we could do is we could go to here and we can add plane. We don't really have to make a box. Plane is going to be more than enough. So we're going to do this is we're going to create a small plane, a rectangular shape. Let's just say, I don't know, 1 by 1 and 0.3 and 0.3, maybe 0.5, 0.5. Maybe that's a bit too big. 3.5. 3.5. All right, so that is going to be our one LED. Okay, so I'm just going to move it here somewhere, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees, right? Maybe not. Can't decide, god damn it. Okay, cool. So the next thing we can do is we can affect the pivot point, right? We can affect the pivot point, and we choose align. And we're going to choose here, pivot, or you can use center. Sometimes, usually pivot point works fine. It depends from this, what is the pivot point of this spotlight. But I'm just going to choose center for now. And I'm not going to really choose Z for now. I'm just going to match it later on. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to press E, and I'm going to affect pivot point off. And I'm going to go to Tools, Array, Rotate, 360, and and preview. All right, that's a little bit too low. Let's do 16. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, press OK. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna drop this down somewhere like this, right? We're gonna press copy. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing. Bam, bam, pivot. Choose pivot now because the center changed. Bam, E for rotate, bam. And we're just gonna put this off and we're gonna rotate it something like this, right? And now we're gonna go tools, array, rotate 360, 16. I think that's a little bit too much. Maybe try 8, preview. Let's try 10, preview. There we go. And do that. And let's just keep it like that. If you want, you can put a little bit more in the middle. If you want to, you can add, I don't know, maybe 3 here. Let's just try it out. Let's try it out while we here. All right. So let's just put this here. And name here. Just do the same thing. So effect pivot. Bam, bam, pivot. That's fine. And let's try array and let's try 3. Let's preview. It's perfectly fine. Press OK. Boom. That's perfect. So let's just select all of those. Deselect the frame and just press collapse. We can always apply thickness if we want to later on. That's perfectly fine. So I'm just going to move that up. By the way, the normals should be facing down, right? So I'm just going to make it poly. Press those. As you can see, this is a positive, which is wrong. Either you flip it or either you just flip it like this. That's it. All right. So I'm gonna move them. Gonna move them something not inside, but just a little bit down. Let me just double check this for a sec. I deselect those. Yeah, so something along that line there. So very, very close, right? We don't really need to see, you know, the detail, how thick they are. We don't really care. So what we're gonna do is gonna copy this guy and apply the material. There we go. So this is our LED spotlight, so to say. All right, and let's just see how they differ. So I'm gonna render this guy. Bam. Okay, cool. Right, we never gonna be standing that close. All right, so let's get closer to that one. Bam. And as you can see, it looks very, very nice. So yeah, then you can play around a little bit with, you know, the intensity. If you want it to pile it up a little bit more, bam. Perfect. Isn't it looks good? It looks so good. I just don't want to end this tutorial. All right, yeah, and same thing for the light source. You can add whatever you want there, right? You can add another light source there. I just roughly, obviously managing here. Just, you know, just do a little bit colder. A little bit colder, boys. Yeah, so if I'm gonna move it back a little bit, let's move. It's a little bit too strong, don't you think? 500, 400. Let's put this to 400. So it's getting stronger because these lights are starting to overlap. Keep in mind. Okay, so it's gonna be starting overlap. You will need to drop the intensity. So 200 for now, 200 for now. And by the way, if you look at these watts, right, per square meter, I'm not gonna explain what it is. It's just basically, let's just say, think about watts, right? So if you're putting 40 watts or whatever, and you think that that should work correctly, yeah, no. If the IES profile was created in option A or in another or one way, 40 watts will not gonna cut it. It's not like you're taking a real life light profile sample. It's forget about reality. in CGI a little bit, okay? Because when I started doing CGI, I used to add double glazing packages in the windows, etc, 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 and I was trying to render, and I was asking everyone around, why is it rendering so slow? Why I'm getting so much noise in my scene? Blah 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 blah. So in time, you learn how to fake things, right? Because this is not reality. Okay, so there you go. You have two nice sexy spotlights. You have one that it's a very generic boring one, grandma's spotlight, and the other one is, you know, if you're cool, use that one, but if you're not that cool, use the left one, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I spent like 5 hours already talking about it, about two spotlights that looks very good. And yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna show in the next tutorial. I have no clue, but I'm gonna think of something. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and oh yeah, also don't forget to subscribe and like.